Good morning, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I am a little tired today. My car is a little loud, and it's a little cold out. I'm saying the word little a lot. I watched half of Black Panther Wakanda Forever last night. That's probably something to do with it, while I was playing the Cosmic Shake for a review next week. But I played about half. Or I watched about half the movie. I got up to spoilers, the death of Queen Ramonda. I think that's where I got. Could be wrong. Either way, doesn't matter. We're gonna talk about it, me and Josie, this weekend, because we're gonna do an episode about that for 30-minute reviews next week instead of Empire Records. I don't know why I picked Empire Records of all movies. I really don't know. It was dumb. But we're going to discuss that this weekend. But for right now, we're here to talk about The Bad Batch, the continued adventures of Clone Force 99. And what the fuck happened this week on the episode? Because it's like, I watched it last night. I definitely watched it last night. And I was like, oh, okay. This was the little Wookiee Jedi, whose name I'm forgetting. It's his turn to be gloved shit out this week. Where it's like, oh look, here's this guy you remember. You know the meme at this point, where it's like, you got, it was a Tumblr post, I think, where it's like Star Wars fans are like, oh my god, look, it's Glub Shitto. From the book, you don't know him, and it's like, well, yeah, and that's kind of what this is, where it's like, you get the story. And the thing is, too, it's like, it's such a weird thing, because ultimately, the dramatic irony of the situation is we, the viewer, know what happens to Kashyyyk in the aftermath of this, because right now we're still in the immediate downfall, I think, or a little after the immediate, it's still reasonably close to the immediate downfall of the Republic and the immediate rise of the Empire. We're still reasonably close. We're not super far out, as reasonably close would suggest. But what that means is we still haven't gotten to a point where the Empire has started to expand out its reach. But all of that notwithstanding, I think that the episode is a little strange because of that, because we know that Kashyyyk is going to fall, and we know the Wookiees are going to be enslaved. And we see the beginnings of that here, where the Empire is kind of burning down the forests of Kashyyyk, and Kashyyyk has turned into Pandora somewhat, in that the trees are all connected, and the trees all talk to each other, and the trees are godly. And it's like, okay, I too have seen Avatar. I know what's going on here. And I think it's an interesting thing to do. It's an interesting layer to add to the Wookiees. I just don't know necessarily if it's 100% necessary, considering what this show is. And it's an interesting kind of, it's an interesting new approach to the world of Star Wars, but I just don't know if it's anything necessarily. It's not necessarily a great expansion. It is an expansion, not necessarily a great one. I think the other issue that I have with this is, we're gonna bring him back to his people on Kashyyyk, and then it's like, okay, again, if that's the mission, we, the audience, know that's not a good idea, because this guy needs to die fighting the Empire, or be enslaved, even though he's Force sensitive. I think this is another episode where it's like, I don't know exactly what continuity you're functioning in, but it feels more like you are doing what Chuck Wendig was criticized for, and I was with him. I was with Star Wars on this, where it's like, retcons shouldn't be an issue. If you feel you have a great story, the story should come first, and you should be able to retcon what you need to for it to fit into place. And I was like, yeah, but you're also when you're when you're writing and you're doing your own writing, that's one thing. Like, if you feel like you have a great story and you gotta retcon something to fit it in properly, then by all means retcon. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Which you may see in Echo Delta Part 2. Come November. And I think when I do the 10th anniversary, well, this will be the first time I announce the 10th anniversary of Families Forever, I'm going to include the opening of Progenitor War Part 1. Because I came up with the opening yesterday, and despite the protestations of one of my closest friends, I'm probably going to stick with that anyway, because I really, I was, it's the kind of thing where it's like, I had the idea, and I'm like, I'm a fucking genius, this is great. And then like, the more I played it out, and the more I worked on it, and I'm like, I love this intro. And she was like, no, it's cliche. Like, you know, it's a little on the nose, it's a little cliche. And I'm like, you know, and I thought about it, I'm like, I don't care. I love it. Like, you know, Swan Song has the first song that we see the Music Man attack to is fucking Pumped Up Kicks. So, like, whatever. I mean, obviously I don't care about being too on the nose. So, whatever. It's on brand for me. Anyway, that's going to be included in, what's it called? In the Families Forever 10th Anniversary Edition, which will be coming out at some point this year. I'm not entirely sure what the exact date is yet. I'm still working on the final manuscript. Anyway, if a retcon, if you have that served as a story, if the story is best served outside of continuity, then who cares? To which I say, if you're being hired to write on someone else's IP, stick to their plot line. If you don't like it and you want to do something different, do do what Zack Snyder did and make your own thing with Rebel Moon, for better or for worse, which I think we're for worse on with Rebel Moon. But and that's the thing kind of here, where it's like, this story, self-contained, is great. The idea of them finding this Jedi, I mean, okay, we have to get him home to his people, and his planet is overrun by Trandoshans and the Empire and all of these other things, and it's like, he's afraid of them because they're clones. And up until, and possibly including this point, the clones have all been kind of, you know, have all been, like, actively trying to kill him, so he's afraid of them. It's a great, you know, thing to have happen, and all of it kind of works. It's just the broader implications of the episode are a little weird, because it's like, we, the audience, know what happens to Kashyyyk and to the Wookiees. Like, we know this. This is not something that, and the episode even alludes to it, but it's like, so we're just gonna be cool with the fact that this character's fine. Like, this character survived Order 66, and then we dropped him off on a planet to be enslaved or killed by the Empire. Like, it feels like a weird choice. It feels like a choice where this character should have been put somewhere else, where they have a better chance of a better outcome, especially if they're going to portray the ending as triumphant as they do here, where it's like, okay, so triumphantly, we did it, we got him back to, you know, this, and he's going to be able to stay here on Kashyyyk. Yay, this is a good thing. But it's like, but is it though? Is it really? I don't think it is. And therein lies the problem. And I think the other issue I have is that we have these worlds that are, like, routinely these guys are walking into and out of Imperial strongholds, and I think to an extent that is understandable, considering we have this whole thing where the Empire thinks they're dead, and the Empire is unwilling to accept the fact that they're not dead, to a fault, where we have, like, that one guy in the last episode who was like, oh, they're still alive, or it was in the first episode, the guy's like, oh, they're still alive, and the Imperial guy's like, no, they're not, and shoots them. So that way he's like, I don't want to do the paperwork on this. I don't want to be the one to deliver the bad news, which kind of builds on Andor, but I feel like this is kind of fizzling out with all of that and trying to do more of what we would come to expect from the animated shows, even though they're not exactly built for syndication. Like, that's, I think, my biggest issue, is that you're in a world now where you can do a serialized animated show on streaming, and the only reason we ever do the non sequitur, oh, these episodes are all kind of loosely connected, and they're all following a larger mission that's, you know, kind of all similar, like, that was needed for, like, Rebels Season 1 and, like, the Clone Wars, because the shows were built to be syndicated, to be reran on the network, so that way they had something to put on any hour of the day. So that way there was always something on Cartoon Network or Disney XD, depending on what show it was. We don't have that issue here. This is a show that's built for streaming. And I think that doing these little non-sequitur adventures is fine, but, like, give me a reason why. Give me a reason why these things are all kind of happening the way they are, in this order, and why this is important. Like, and look, I understand that it's like, they're doing little things around the galaxy to help out, so that way, people are just slightly less worse off under the Empire. And, like, look, I get it. I just feel like there's definitely more that they could have done to make it all feel kind of interconnected and fleshed out a little bit stronger. Because ultimately that's the biggest issue that I have, is that we have these shows that are, what's the end goal of this season going to be? Is the question I have. Where is the season going? And if the season is going somewhere, what's the end goal? Like, what's the end game here? Basically, is the question I have. What is, where are we going on this? And I don't quite have an answer yet, or anything that's shaping up to be an answer, considering we're, like, 6 episodes in. I still don't think we have an answer, which is a shame. Because, at least when we watched the Clone Wars TV show when it was on Cartoon Network, it didn't have that, but it wasn't really designed to have, there were multi-part episodes, but the majority of the episodes are not meant to be building towards a final arc in each season. The same goes for, parts of Rebels and all of that, where, a good amount of the episodes are kind of non-sequitur. But the thing is, we don't have anything that's even remotely looking like there's a trajectory here of where the story's going. And look, if it is just, here are the guys going around and doing good stuff around the galaxy to help out and make things better, that's not a bad story to tell. I'm not saying you shouldn't tell that story. What I am saying is that they got to be better about doing that within the continuity a little bit, because I still, this most recent episode is where I'm kind of it's a little strange. It's a little strange that it's well, the mission is to get this guy back to the world where he's going to be enslaved. Obviously they don't know that, but, we're far enough out where it's oh, shit's going bad on Kashyyyk and they don't know it. Do they just not care? There are so many questions I have regarding this whole situation, where it's why couldn't someone be, this kid's a Jedi. He can't sense the suffering of his people on his homeworld and be oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't go back there. I don't know, it's just an odd choice. I don't know. Maybe it sounds like I missed the entire point of the episode. It's entirely possible. But yeah, I think we'll wrap up there for today. So, upcoming this weekend, tonight I'll be watching and catching up on National Treasure. So I will do the most recent 3 episodes all in one fell swoop tomorrow. That will catch us up there. Tonight I will be going to see Knock at the Cabin, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, which I was going to do a review of Old this week, to the point where I sat down and watched Old the other night. Monday night I sat down and watched Old, and I was wow, that's an hour 50 I'm not getting back, but at least it's good content for 30-minute reviews. I was alright, cool. Then on Tuesday, while I was at work, Gunn released that direct that kind of announced the Gods and Monsters chapter of the DC universe, and I was oh, I'll do this instead. This will be better content. But I have now seen Old, and I'm worse off for it. So, yeah, I feel like that was a waste of my time. And I think the worst part of it is I never want to watch that movie again. In fact, if I could, I would remove that movie from my memory. So I don't know necessarily if that is ever going to be talked about on 30-minute reviews. That would require me to sit down and watch that movie. But either way, that was going to be Tuesday, but now we did the DC Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, the first half of the release slate that was announced on Tuesday. That was the big story we covered instead. And we did a long half-hour episode breaking it down, talking about the announcements, what they could mean going forward, all that jazz. And now we did that, and then the next thing we're going to do is next week we're going to be doing Black Panther Wakanda Forever on 30-minute reviews. Next week on Exploring Hyperspace Lanes, we're going to talk about Battlefront and Battlefront 2 at Josie's request. We're going to do both in one episode. We are going to do, I feel there's one other one that I'm missing. 80 for Brady this weekend on Sunday. Fuck Me with the Train. 80 for Brady, and I feel like there's definitely other stuff I'm missing. Oh, and The Flash starts up next week, so get ready for The Flash coming back. We're going to go back to discussing The Flash on a weekly basis, as that is in its final season. I think we also have Gotham Knights in March, and The Last of Us continuing on throughout the week. And Poker Face. I am going to catch up on Poker Face for this weekend. So get ready for that, too. But until our next episode, have a great rest of your week. Oh, if you want to see any of that, and you want to keep track of what we're doing, go to multipleworldproductions.com/calendar. Or if you go to the website, multipleworldproductions.com, I think the link on top says upcoming events. If you go up there, you can click on the link and you can see what we're covering, when, and what days, approximately, because days may change based on my availability, or if I have something to do after work, or if I have to, if recording schedules don't line up, or if I, if ticket availability, all that kind of stuff that's kind of outside of my control. So it may vary, but it's going to largely follow that schedule broadly. But until then, have a great rest of your week.